rumors, gossip, and tabloid papers. They said it was for the best. I found out they were wrong a little later. Follow the sun on the rise. If you open your eyes, you can change your view. Walk a city block in these shoes. Something old for something new. Change your view. Here we are again. Haven't seen you around in a while. Where have you been? New look, you found your style. Make you realize if you open your eyes.
I'll go ahead and read the Plan and Zoning Commission rules of procedure before we begin the meeting. Item 1, Plan and Zoning Commission is generally an advisory body to the City Council. The City Council will hold a public hearing and make the final decision on all matters before the Commission other than site plans and preliminary subdivision plats. Commission's decision to approve or deny a site plan or preliminary subdivision plat is the final decision by the City unless the applicant appeals to City Council. Please contact the City Clerk or Community Development Department staff for details on council hearings. The applicant will be given 10 minutes to present the request. Proponents and then opponents from the public are then allowed to speak in that order, with each speaker allowed a maximum of 5 minutes. Applicant is then allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal. The hearing will then be closed and the Commission will discuss and vote on the issue. All comments are to be germane to the item under consideration and speakers are to maintain a courteous manner. Items listed on the consent portion of the agenda will not be individually discussed and will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation in the staff report unless an individual present or a member of the Commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately under the public hearing agenda. City of Des Moines is pleased to provide accommodations to individuals or groups with disabilities and encourages participation in city government. To better serve you, when possible, please notify us at least 3 business days in advance at 515-283-4209 should special accommodations be required. Assistive listening devices are available for meetings in the council chambers. Plan and Zoning Commission meetings are broadcast on Mediacom cable channels 7.1 or 7.2 for customers with that service. Minutes. Request approval. Moved. Jack moved. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor raise your right hand. Opposed? Ted and Dory.
I abstain.
Greg?
I apologize.
Okay. I think the first thing we'll do, we have a request. It's item 8 for a continuance, and we'll deal with that first. It's a request from Landmark Development Services, Inc., represented by Bill Spencer for review and approval of preliminary subdivision plat, Skyline Plat 1, on property located in the 3400 block of West McKinley Avenue to allow division of the property into 5 lots for single-family development. Subject property is owned by Priority Excavating, LLC. We have a request to continue. Is there anyone here in the audience who would like to speak on that item? Otherwise, we'll proceed. Seeing none.
I move we continue the item.
Will's moving. What, are we continuing it to next meeting, Eric?
Yes, I believe they want to the August 7th.
Okay. So we have a motion to continue item 8 to the next meeting. Any further discussion? Okay, those in favor raise your right hand. Opposed? No one? Okay, so item 8, we're continuing. We have...
Need to abstain. Do I do it now or then?
No, I'll do it then.
Okay.
Right now we have 6 items that are proposed to be on the consent agenda, and I'll go through them one at a time and make sure they want to stay, and then we'll see if we want to add any others to that. So item 1, city-initiated request to amend Des Moines 2020 Community Character Plan to adopt the Martin Luther King Jr. Park neighborhood revitalization plan as an element including the following revisions of the future land use designations, which I'm not going to read. Is there anyone here who is opposed to item number 1? I see none. Okay. Item number 2, request from Eric J. Riesenberg Living Trust, 1620 24th Street for vacation of the following segments of right-of-way, and I will read these. The west 15 feet of 24th Street east of and adjoining the subject property, the west 15 feet of 24th Drive between vacated 24th Place and Washington Avenue, and Washington Avenue from 24th Drive to a point approximately 166 feet to the west. Anyone opposed to that item? See none. Item 3 is a request from Frank Strube for review and approval of a site plan, the Drake Bakery, under design guidelines in NPC districts on property located at 1409 23rd Street to allow conversion of the existing church building to a restaurant. Anyone opposed to that item? Seeing none. Item 4, request from Majestic Consultants LLC, represented by Tim Morrow, for review and approval of a site plan, Morrow Office, under design guidelines in NPC districts on property located at 3512 Ingersoll Avenue to allow expansion of the existing off-street parking lot toward the south, adding 8 additional spaces. Anyone opposed to that or the staff recommendation of that item? Okay. Item number 5, request from Randall Van Gundy, 2812 Indianapolis Avenue for vacation of a dead-end segment of east-west alley between Kinsey Avenue and Indianapolis Avenue from East 28th Street to a point approximately 1,990 feet to the east. Anyone opposed to item 5? I see none. Item 6, request from Raymond Keano, 1440 Maury Street for vacation of the west 6 feet of the southeast 15th Street east of and adjoining the subject property. Anyone opposed to that item? Okay, that's items 1 through 6. I've heard that we may want to move item 9 on, so I'm going to, is that true? I'm going to read item 9 and then we'll find out if that's true from the applicant. Request from Thomas J. Wong for review and approval of a site plan amendment to Tom's Auto Sales East under design guidelines for vehicle display lots on property located at 2136 East University Avenue to allow for expansion of the existing service shop, showroom, and sales office building with 464 square foot addition on the west and a 238 square foot addition on the east. Any opposition to the staff recommendation on that item?
Is that a question for staff?
No, I'm asking the applicant, really. Somebody out there opposed to this item?
Am I allowed to ask the question?
Ask away.
I just want to know what he's going to do with the house on the north side of that lot, because that's the only thing that separates me from him is a house at 1217. I just want to know what he's going to do with that.
As proposed, the house is not in, as part of the site plan.
Say this like it is. You
Yeah.
came over and asked me.
Well, every time
The answer is,
he's going
ma'am,
driving up down the street. So
if we're going to have a detailed discussion, we're going to pull it and talk about it. So the answer is nothing if that's suitable.
I don't oppose.
Would you like to hear the item, ma'am?
Maybe. Sure.
Okay, we'll hear it. So item 9 will stay. Any others? 11? We'll find out. On item 11, request from Eagle View Lofts LLC as successor to Hanson Real Estate Services, represented by Troy Hanson, rezoned approximately 4 acres of City of Des Moines and Wastewater Reclamation Authority owned property located in the vicinity of 714 Southeast 6th Street. Anyone opposed to that item or the staff recommendation for that item? I see no one, so it looks like item 11 can move. And 12. Item 12 is a request from Kent Mock, Rycon LLC, represented by David Isaacson and JB Doors Partnership, represented by Marvin Jones, for vacation of the following segment as the right-of-way generally located south of Southwest Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway, north of Elm Street, west of Southwest 5th Street, and east of Southeast West 7th Street. And I'll read them. A, portions of Elm Street between Southwest 5th Street and Southwest 6th Street. Southwest 6th Street between Elm Street and Southwest M.L. King Jr. Parkway. And portions of excess right-of-way for Southwest M.L. King Jr. Parkway north of and adjoining Elm Street between Southwest 5th Street and Southwest 7th Street.
And I wanted to point out on that one, Mr. Chair, that Part C doesn't actually require vacation. It's part of their overall
Okay.
purchase request, but not considered for vacation, so.
Okay. Anyone opposed to item 12?
Yes, I'm opposed.
You're opposed, okay, so we'll hear item 12. So the first thing we need to do is add item 11 to the consent agenda. Jackie is moving 11 onto the consent. Any discussion? Okay, those in favor, raise your right hand.
I can vote on all of them but 11.
Opposed? Okay. And Greg needs to abstain
Abstain on
from
11?
item 11. So
But I'm going to approve all the other ones.
So we have items 1 through 6 and 11 on consent. Someone moving consent? Jack? Okay, any discussion about that? Okay, those in favor of moving consent, raise your right hand. Opposed? Nobody? Okay, so to reiterate, we're done with items 1 through 6 and item 11, so if you're here for those, you can leave or you can stay for the show.
I didn't hear you. No. No, just abstaining.
So we're going on to item number 7,
Yes, Mr. Chair.
which I will read first, and then I will let Eric speak. Request from Dennis Mode? What'd you say? Moody. Okay. To rezone property located at 727 Southeast 28th Street. And we're going to determination as to whether the proposed rezoning is conformance with the existing Des Moines 2020 Community Character Plan, amend the Des Moines 2020 Community Character Plan to revise the future land use designation from low-density residential to general industrial, and rezone from R160 one-family low-density district to M1 light industrial district to allow the subject property to be used for an expansion of the existing tree service, contractor equipment, storage yard, and wood yard outdoor storage. Eric?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and I'll try to keep these presentations brief, but if there's questions that I'm not covering, don't hesitate to ask. This is a property at the northeast corner of Maury Street and southeast 28th Street. The portion that's the applicant is seeking zoning on is the southwest corner. It was formerly a church where the church was recently demoed from the site. The balance of what you see in that area is area that's already zoned M1 with conditions as indicated in the staff report from a previous rezoning. We included it in the notification because we're suggesting to make some conditions that would also apply to the balance of the site. So we included that overall because we wanted to be able to do a conditional zoning to modify the M1 for the remainder portion of the site, as you see in our final staff report. One thing you should know about this area, the Southeast Connector project will be coming through here soon, and the design for that's all laid out, and portions of Mr. Moody's property have been acquired for that project, and as a result, it's forcing him to adjust or shift some of his operation there. He has a tree service business where he stores firewood and other materials that are byproducts of his business as a tree service, and it's considered outdoor storage. This is a permitted use in the M1 district. There's aspects of it that are non-conforming with specifically we don't allow the actual storage to occur within the front yard setbacks along public streets like Maury Street. Right now, there's not a public street to the north, but we have acquired property for right-of-way, and we are looking at it as such as a public street or road will be going through there, and we want to look at the impacts of what that would have on that future street as well. Recognizing that Mr. Moody does have the need to sort of relocate some of his activity of his site. So we are in support of the rezoning. One of the things we want to make sure as a condition is that it's limited in a similar fashion as the rest of this M1 area was previously, and that was primarily due to the fact that it's in a residential area to the west and south. As sparse as it is still a residential area. So we are looking to make similar conditions as the previous rezoning by limiting it to the tree service as the only industrial use that would be allowed there. Any expansion should be in accordance with the site plan. We want to make sure that he's following our current site plan regulations with any future extension of the business, making sure that storage is occurring on dustless surfaces, maneuvering aisles are paved, proper landscaping is put along perimeters, that type of thing. One of the things that, in fact, that's the next condition, is ensuring that all drive aisles and maneuver areas within that expansion area are paved and that the storage areas are durable. We want to make sure that the outdoor storage area, as proposed, would be screened from public street views. And in order to do that, to make the most of the area, it's in all likelihood that's going to trigger a Board of Adjustment appeal to get both the allowance for storage to be closer than 25 feet to the public street right-of-way and to allow a screen fence up against that right-of-way within that front yard setback. So even with these conditions, there's still some need to get relief to maximize the use of that area. Certainly the conditions can be met and worked within that, but that's going to have very limited use of that space. The last thing I want to point out is along the future southeast connector in this area, we are looking to have some type of a screen edge. The project is actually going to be somewhat elevated above the site. So a screen fence in itself would be an expense for one. I'm not sure how effective a 6-foot opaque fence will be because of the fact that this is elevated, but that would be one option to sort of mitigate that. The other option would be to space some evergreen plantings along there to break up the views of the site from the corridor, and would have a better effect at a higher height than the 6-foot fence would, for example. So we're asking for that to be done along this edge here with the construction of the project. My understanding is the project will have a chain link fence on top of retaining wall along that same area. So from an actual security perspective, there is some barrier between the southeast connector and this site. So the landscaping may be the better option, but we're recommending that as a condition. The southwest corner was also in the land use plan shown for low density residential. So in order to find this rezoning in conformance, we have to recommend that that portion be amended to the general industrial category. Staff is recommending that in order to find this zoning in conformance, and you can approve it then with the conditions. I think that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Questions for Eric?
I have a question, please. Eric, the city of Des Moines is going to be facing rather soon a lot of issues in terms of trees. And my question is, how well positioned is the city to deal with this problem? And specifically here in the recommendation, the language says something about for use by a tree service business. Now, Mr. Moody, you're going to have quite a bit of business in the coming years. I have no doubt about that, and I'm glad for you. My question is, though, how well defined is tree service business by the city of Des Moines, because we're going to be experiencing a lot of issues?
I guess right now it's sort of self-defining, but I guess if there's concerns about narrowing that to something specific. M1 allows generally about any type of contractor, storage yard, typically. So we're sort of narrowing it down to saying it has to be a tree service type contractor. If it will be up to the zoning officer, I think, really to determine if at some point it starts migrating away from what the general understanding of tree service is, but that's not defined in our zoning ordinance. So if you want to further qualify that for your own comfort level, the commission could certainly add language to that.
I'd like R&O to discuss this matter. I can see a lot of problems in terms of disposing of these trees and so forth. I mean, they're diseased, and there's a health question. There's going to be a huge volume. Where are we going to put all this stuff? We're planning. We need to look at it, you know?
Does that mean you'd like to be chair of R&O?
No, I think the present chair is doing an
The language
outstanding
actually
job.
comes from the previous conditional zoning, so we didn't really change anything from the previous conditional zoning. M1, before it was amended about 5 years ago, had language that said coal yard, coke yard, or wood yard as an allowed use, and that was as specific as it was. And so there was a lot of these tree contractors that maintained their wood yards in the industrial zones. So that, this has been here quite some time,
I
as you
think
can
R&O
probably
can
guess.
look at that. So. Any other questions for Eric, Joanne?
The owner doesn't have any objections to your conditions here?
I think you'll have to ask the owner. I would imagine that, I think he's expressed to one of our planners that he's not very agreeable to putting the plantings or the fencing along the north side, so.
We'll find out when he presents.
Eric, along those lines, what's the time frame for the southeast connector to abut this property?
Well, they're already doing design, and so that's in the process. The budget would say within the next two construction years, it would be in this area. So I don't think they'll have it completed, but they'll begin doing work, not this summer, but next summer, I think, in this area.
Go ahead, Joanne.
And with that, would the owner be given that much time to do this sort of work that he needs to do for his, what is
Well,
it?
it's contingent upon the expansion, so whatever point he would decide to expand into this area, right here, we would want him to comply with site plan regulations and those conditions. With regard to the trees along the north, I think we would want to see those go in commencing with the project completion, so.
Commencing with what?
The project completion.
Project completion, meaning
Right.
southeast
Yeah,
connector.
we don't want them to put a bunch of trees there and have them torn out by the connector, right. And they've already purchased what's necessary for the project, so theoretically, he could plant them now and they wouldn't be touched, but I think as we know, that trees, especially evergreens, are a little sensitive and probably need the best opportunity for growing conditions. So the intent here with our staff report was that it would go in at the completion of the road project.
Greg?
So this item number 5, or condition number 5 you put on there, was that condition on the previous property or just this, or is it new now since they want to add it?
It was not conditioned on the previous. I don't think that the previous.
What's led you to want to add this then?
Mainly because there's modification to the overall site in some fashion, so this is an opportunity to get some compliance and get an edge along the corridor.
Did the city take some property, so to speak, to accommodate the southeast connector already as step one?
They did.
So we've modified his parcel, so to speak, already.
Yes, the city.
And at that time, we didn't tell him that we were going to require him to plant a row of trees.
No, we did not. And we wouldn't have contemplated it because we wouldn't have known exactly about the rezoning or the fact that he would acquire this additional property, so.
So along those same lines, is there a need for them? I mean, is the existing property unsightly, there's an issue, there's a problem?
Well, it's outdoor storage, and I think all along that corridor, we're trying to look at opportunities to sort of break up areas that would be outdoor storage, so it's very difficult to get in there to get a good photo or something to give you a perspective as to, all the photos we have are from the existing street rights away. So
CJ?
I would say yes, but I can't give you a sense of that with a photo.
I have a question. It says that it allows wood storage, and I know that Metro Waste Authority and the state has some regulations on movement of all hardwood and storage right now, so I guess I have a question. Has that been checked out with the municipal arborist, or?
The municipal arborist would have gotten this item in front of him. He didn't make any comments. Until we do a site plan, we're not assuming that he'd be moving wood into this area. And my thought was that he was only going to put his contractor equipment and that kind of thing and not move wood into this area, but you can ask. But we didn't verify his compliance with state regulations on anything particular.
Joanne?
Two thoughts here. One is that I've been by that place probably a million times in my life, because we always go that way to go to the fair. I don't find the property offensive to the point where he's going to have to make all of this tree barrier. Another thing, the plan on MLK so far has planted trees on both sides. Now, has that been considered when you tell him he has to put one every 10 feet? Because there's already deciduous trees planned for that whole thing.
We were aware of the project. This would be outside of what was part of the project, so.
Part of the MLK project?
Yes.
Okay.
This would be in addition to any enhancements for the corridor along the edges of the project.
Well, I don't know. Like I said, he handles a lot of tree debris and stuff like that the way he's handled it so far is not particularly ugly. I'm kind of happy to see somebody taking this and doing something with it. If I'm not mistaken, he does have wood in that area, and it's where he cuts it up and stores, and then he's able to sell it.
Let's put it this way, if this was built new and they were just moving in here for the first time, we would require that as a screening if the southeast connector were in place. So we kind of took that approach to it, that here's an opportunity to, in sort of exchange for expanding the site through zoning, to gain some conformance to a standard that we would apply to a new storage yard. So.
Okay, I know what the city does require or would like to see. I'm just wondering that with the trees that MLK is going to have on there already, if there can't be some consideration on just what he is going to have to plant.
I think
and maybe even a greater time frame, because this is going to be more than 2 years to get this done. The section over on Southeast 6th East has been more than 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to assume that this section isn't going to be done any quicker, and I'm hoping that, there will be something for him to, that's a lot for, that's quite a stretch there.
From the budget perspective, of course, we're always trying to keep it in a timely manner, but as we know, there's all types of exterior things that come into play when budgeted projects get done and completed. But the way we've worded this, hopefully, if you do go ahead and recommend that standard or that requirement, it would be triggered by the dedication of the right-of-way itself. So the presumption there is that for the most part, everything is in place and functional when it gets dedicated. So we wouldn't want him to put them there prior to that. And again, the commission may feel like that's extending beyond the scope of it here, and they can make a separate recommendation. This is just the staff recommendation.
Greg?
Do you happen to have a drawing, Eric, that would show the relationship of where the southeast connector goes through?
I do. I've just got so much drawings here, I have to make sure it has all the profiles and all the, this is 28th Street, and this doesn't give it any justice because
Where's
everything.
the applicant's property?
I think it's on this portion right here.
Confused.
Zoom out some.
So if you're looking at the aerial,
Yeah, help me out on the aerial. Just show me about where it goes through. It goes through Dean Lake there?
That's down.
I almost have to skew it up here
Okay.
to give you a sense of it. That's 28th Street right here.
And where's his property at?
This is his,
Right there.
I believe this is his building over here. This says Moody right here.
So where your pin's pointing, that's the piece he wants to add on of land, where your pin was?
Here, no, it's
Yes.
down below.
And if you can see along here, most of that area is going to be elevated, and there's going to be a retaining wall that will be constructed here, and then I might have to zoom out here.
Okay, so there's no trees along that side.
So can you start to see the edge of his property here? This is future Maori. The other thing I should point out is there's the Maori will be terminated and won't go under the connector or over the connector. It'll be a dead end segment at the east end of his property, basically.
How do you get to the fair?
There, you will go up 28th.
You jig-jag.
You'll have to look at the overall. There will be another crossing further to the east as well, so. But, yeah, Maori will come to a dead end, and there's some thought that with just a couple of owners along it, that it may be vacated at some point in the future, too.
Are there any other questions for Eric? I think we should move along and hear from the applicant if there's not something.
I just-
Then we can ask more questions.
I just think
Will that work?
that's a lot.
Can we hear from the applicant, please? Please state your name and address.
Get out of your way.
My name is Dennis Moody, and
Beg your pardon?
my shop address is 727 Southeast 28th. I live on the south side, over on Southwest 28th. My plan, I tore this church down I acquired the church because it was abandoned. They hadn't used it for 10, 12, 14 years. People were living in it and everything. So I bought it. They come to me because I always told them when they had the church going that I would always be interested in it. So they come to me, the Reverend did or somebody, and I purchased it. Then in a couple of years I tore it down, and it's been vacant ever since. And now I really didn't need it before, but now since the city did come in, they did buy about 25, 30 feet of my north side. They've taken all my storage, virtually. And I've had to store some stuff off-site right now, but it gets expensive bringing it back. Because I do have to store this wood. I got to split it, and I got to store it for a year to sell it. It's always a year in advance. Everybody that goes by us knows that there's a lot of wood there, but then it's always gone in the spring. It just goes away. So the reason I want to do this now is because the north side's gone, and I need it, for storage. And as far as I'm in compliance pretty much with everything that's talked about on this sheet. I'm willing to build a fence around it, like a 6-foot privacy fence around that area, and put the dustless stuff down, the asphalt shavings for the ground, and plant trees around that. There's already trees up here. All this whole side of my property is just all trees right there now anyway. But I would be willing to plant some more around that area. And as far as I don't know, you guys probably haven't seen much of this, but this is the cul-de-sac. This is what they gave me when they started talking to me. They're planning on putting that cul-de-sac in there. And the green part is the part they're gonna, that's Murray Street, they're gonna condemn and stop. And they're gonna only allow me access through that cul-de-sac and I'll have to come down through there and get into my property. Besides I got a parking lot for my building up on 28th for my employees, but that's it. I'm not going to use the driveways that are there now for where the church was. I'm going to concrete those in. I'm not going to make access there. It'll all come off my original road, street, property. I'll access the new if you rezone that, I'll access it from my own property. And as far as the north side goes, when they come talk to me, like he just said, they're going to already put a fence up there, and it's going to be elevated. And as far as hiding it too much, I know I really don't want it hidden too much because there's a lot of thievery problems down in there. And if you notice around me, there is no houses. This is a big business over here. There's no houses over here. There's one house this way, and there's two across the street. But the more you conceal it, the more people have to hide behind things and steal my stuff, more or less. So I really don't want to hide it. I mean, I do want to be seen from the new MLK too for my customers and stuff. So that's about it. Any questions?
So if I may clarify on the staff report on item 5, you'd like not to do any of that or part of it, or you?
Well, when they talked to me about buying it, the agreement was they have to build a retaining wall, and they're going to put a chain link fence on top of it for safety anyway. So, and if I plant anything on my side, that's just going to take more room off me. You know, I mean, if I got to plant bushes or trees along there, that's another 10 feet I'm going to lose of more storage. So, I mean, I'm keep losing more and more as it goes. And like you are going to plant trees along there anyway. So I don't really see a point of it at all myself.
Any questions for Dennis? CJ?
I have a question. How many pieces of equipment do you have?
I've lost track,
Do you
actually.
have how many bucket trucks or dump trucks or?
Oh, I probably got 15, 16 pieces of equipment. I store some in my building, but I got a lot of stuff.
So that means how many employees you have?
I got about 10.
10 employees.
Yes.
And do you know what the rules and regulations are on storing wood
Yes.
now that it's changed?
Yes.
So there is some limitations on what type of wood you can store and
Nope,
move?
they haven't come to me. I've been reading, and they used to be, a couple years ago, there was limitation on the ash, like transporting the ash out of state. You know, they didn't want no ash coming in from out of state, the infected areas. But as far as coming out of Iowa for the last 2 years, they've let it go. And I've had to give people, anybody that would buy firewood off me, but I'd have to give them this green piece of paper stating where it came from, where I cut it. Like I cut all my wood in Polk County. So if they took my wood out of state, they would know where it came from.
Okay, there is a full warranty by the Department of Agriculture, quarantine in the state of Iowa.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably going to change here soon, too. Are you doing business as John's Tree Service?
Right.
Is that, okay, and
Yeah.
how long have you been in business?
And my dad started in '72. I took it over in about '84. And my two boys work for me, and they're going to keep it going. So I've been doing it about 30 years.
Okay, and you say you've already purchased these trees that you're going to plant?
No.
Oh,
No,
I'm sorry,
no.
I misunderstood.
No.
Do you do?
But I said I will be agreeable to plant anything around that area.
Okay. Is your employees, are they certified arborists?
No.
Oh, they aren't, and you're not either?
No.
Do you do injections? Are you certified to inject?
I just remove and trim. I don't get into feeding or planting or nothing.
Or diagnosis, or
No.
just?
I mean, I got my whole life, this is all I've ever done. I grew up cutting trees. I could get the test, I could pass it, but it's just a lot of, I'm just getting to the point I'm getting on the outside, you know. I'm getting old enough, my boys they're the ones that are gonna have to take the test, not me.
Well, it's fairly easy.
Yeah. I've tried.
Okay, so I guess that's, I can see that the wood that you have access to is going to significantly increase.
Well, yes and no. I can only do so much work. I mean, I don't advertise. I've been doing this my whole life. I can only do so much work every year. So my wood increase is no. Because I can't do no more. So what I haul in, I recycle, I chip it up, I grind it, and the firewood I reproduce. So the rest of it goes either to the landfill, which I try not to. I really try to recycle it. That's my goal.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor of the application? Anyone to speak in opposition to the application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion. Tim's moving. With any modifications or as is?
I think you agreed to doing the trees.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I do about anything around that area there.
He agreed
No,
to do
they're
the
different
trees
trees, though. I think
on the
they're
rezoned part, but not on the ML King side.
No.
I
Why don't you show us where the trees you've agreed to plant are located?
Well,
Because we're talking the retaining wall is going to be on the MLK side.
yes, yes.
This is the schematic, if I can get it to widen out any further.
How would you modify that?
This is just the area of this little pink area, Tim.
Yeah. This is the area I'm trying to get rezoned as far as what.
And so this schematic depicts the area that he wants to extend into with his use.
But after the pink area is where the retaining wall starts, correct?
No.
The retaining wall will be up in this area,
Okay.
around the existing yard.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So the staff recommendation requires trees to be planted 6 foot tall, trees every 10 feet along
Or
the new connector
fence.
or a fence.
How long is that?
And,
What's that distance?
well, the site plan's going to require, outside of zoning, site plan's going to require these perimeter
Yeah.
plantings.
Which it sounds like he doesn't have a
We're
problem
not
with.
making that a condition, that's going to be something that's part of the site plan.
So
We're asking this to be something that wouldn't normally be triggered by site plan.
How long, what length is that, Eric?
This long here?
1,000 feet?
About
710.
Thanks, Dave.
So that's
71. So 71 trees.
Yeah.
Seems so.
And that 6 foot size is the size we would normally
They're gonna
have
spade them in.
on a new site, so.
Well, you could either rescind your motion or entertain a friendly amendment if someone were inclined to say, would you agree to, now, are we asking for a fence or trees along that north side?
Yes, the
That's
fence
what it
was an
says.
option in case area became an issue. By shrinking up the area, the fence would have been a different.
You okay with the fence along there?
Well, the fence is already going to be on top of the wall.
Right.
That's been
It's
agreed
chain
to
link.
already.
The wall's going to be off his property though, so we would want the fence at his
What
property.
about the fence on off of your property on MLK from 28th or?
That
You
is
put
what
a fence on my property that's going to be down, and you won't even, the trouble is, that whole.
But I thought the fence
Go ahead.
didn't make any sense because the
They're gonna be
road
up in the air.
bed is elevated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Doesn't make any
already
sense.
alluded to that in the.
So we shouldn't even request the fence because
Right.
it's worthless.
It's the alternative we developed in case the trees would take up too much area, so.
No.
We need to get off.
I'm going to rescind my motion until we figure out what we're going to do with it.
Okay, so Tim has taken back his motion. What I think the bottom line is, we're trying to figure out, does he need 71 trees along that backside or some lesser number or none? Is that true? Jack, try something.
This might be for Eric. Did you say a fence would be superfluous because the road
I think some people were making that conclusion.
would be elevated so high that the fence would do no good to screen the property? Is that what we
Yeah, I
understand?
suggested it wouldn't be as effective because of the fact that part of the fence would sit below the level of the street, so.
Okay. So you want trees such that they may grow in excess of the height of the proposed fence and be meaningful as a screen to the property. Is that what we're talking about
That
here?
was the preferred recommendation, yeah, but we added fence as an alternative because of the issue of taking up a lot of area along there too. So.
Okay, now is there an argument here, Eric, that the city has shrunken, if you will, if that's a word, the applicant's property in a size that's at least equivalent to the property which he seeks to rezone?
Maybe even larger.
Right, so that the argument could proceed, he wouldn't need to expand into this pink space had the city not acquired the right-of-way for the southeast connector.
That sounds like the argument that he made.
Yeah. And that's what troubles me about this whole thing is that, I mean,
Yes, he was compensated for his property.
right, but he probably wasn't told he needed to plant 71 trees.
That wouldn't have been known at the time.
Well, it's a condition of him replacing his property for property.
Yeah, I guess if the commission feels that's outside of what they should recommend, then they can remove it. Staff is recommending that.
All right. I just have a sense it's onerous. I think some other people do, and we're trying to figure out a practical solution.
So let's float a motion, please.
Yeah, I have a motion.
I would say, I'd like to remove 5, but I would add back an administrative solution with the applicant and staff that had a significantly reduced amount of trees
Yeah.
to be planted along that area, but I can't get behind no trees. So.
Is that a motion, or are you just floating the idea?
Trying something.
Someone try a motion, please.
Excuse me, but I love trees. I mean, that's why I do what I do. And I'm willing to plant something along there, but you gotta realize, you plant something that's, 6, 8 feet below a wall, and you plant something 6, 8 foot tall, it's gonna be 15, 20 years for this tree
I'll make a motion.
ever gets to do anything,
Species.
I'll offer.
anything.
I'm
Greg, try a motion.
prepared to make a motion.
So is Greg.
Yeah, I'll offer one. My motion would be that we approve the rezoning. We accept staff's items 1 through 4, conditions 1 through 4. We strike condition number 5 and add a new number 5 to provide trees at 10 feet on center or a 6-foot tall fence along the portion of the north property to the point where the road ramps up. Because it only starts at a certain point, correct? Eric?
Yes.
So wherever that point is,
Without having the engineering drawings, we probably don't know that yet, but that
for
seems...
staff to figure that out, find that point.
Okay,
Yeah.
we have a motion. Any discussion on the motion?
I'd like to make a friendly amendment
Go.
that the species selection of trees be in consultation with the municipal arborist.
Accepted.
Yeah, and that would just be this area here between his parking lot and the retaining wall.
I think that's adequate for my motion.
Okay. So the motion is strike 5 and add a new 5 to put trees along the area where there's not the retaining wall.
Trees or the fence until the point of where the road heads up, and I'm accepting the amendment that trees would be approved by the city arborist.
So put trees between, not along the wall, but between the retaining wall and the road, or what's that, southeast 28th.
Yeah.
That
instead of
area,
the whole
Yes.
thing.
that small area there.
Oh, yeah.
And you gotta realize my building is right there, so there's no room to put trees right there, unless I put it on your property. I mean, I'll put trees, but this area,
Yeah, is this thing flipped?
this, why don't you show it there?
Thank
Now,
you.
This is my parking lot right here,
Just pointing to the other side.
and my building is here. You're actually, the corner of my building is gonna be on your property. I mean, it's that close.
Yeah, looks like they took the...
Yeah.
the purpose of all of this really isn't to screen your property. That's not the purpose, and it's not going to happen anyway. The purpose, as Eric said earlier on, is to break up the sense of just a flat space. So when people are not driving 5 miles along here, people are zipping along, and the idea of all of these amenities is just to break up the sense of, a mass.
Yeah. And I got no problem putting some trees right there. I mean, it's not that big an area, so that's no problem.
We have a motion. Any further discussion? If not, we're going to vote on it. So those in favor of Greg's motion, please raise your right hand. Opposed? CJ is opposed? Thank you. So that item, we modified 5.
Good.
Thank you. Yikes. Where are we now?
Done? Thank you.
We continued 8.
We did? 8? No. Really?
No, we continued item 8, so we're on to item 9, which I will read once I find it. We've read this one once. Request from Thomas J. Wong for review and approval of a site plan amendment to Tom's Auto Sales East under design guidelines for vehicle display lots on property located at 2136 East University Avenue to allow for expansion of the existing service shop, showroom, and sales office building with 464 square foot addition on the west and 238 square foot addition on the east. Eric.
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is the one you were considering for consent, but the neighbors had some questions, so I'll just cover it briefly here. Tom's Auto Sales, this site has been in this way since about a little bit prior to when we enacted the vehicle display lot design guidelines, so about 2001, I think, we approved the site plan for this area just before the East University streetscape design guidelines came into play. I think at that time he was trying to meet the spirit of that, working with Frank Coons and Skip Moore, who were chairing that group at the time. So it's been in its current state with the building like that since about that time. This is looking at the building now and the display lot from University. One of our concerns was the little areas alongside the driveways where there's display occurring. There's some motorcycles here and a car parked here. Maybe it's a little easier to see further on down. But outside the drive approaches, there's these areas within the right-of-way that we want to see restored as part of this process to gain more conformance. We're not going to get conformance on every aspect of our vehicle display lot, because what that would do is really start to diminish the overall site to get the open space, and then you begin just for a minimal expansion, you're causing a lot of additional activity that changes the business model, I think. So right now the additions are going in this area, and in this area and in this area. They did go to the Board of Adjustment and got relief to allow that addition to go closer to your street to the west than the 25-foot setback would allow. That's outlined in the staff report. And any expansion of the vehicle display lot does require them to come back through the commission, so that's why they're in front of you. They've generally resubmitted, just here within the last day, a site plan that's a little different and indicates compliance with everything that was in the staff recommendation. The only thing I think maybe it doesn't really speak to is the question of doing something to restore the coloration of the paving that was there previous to a recent time when it was painted a brighter color. We want it to be more of a neutral tone that is in line with the brick colorations you see along the East University design guidelines. So that was one thing we did want to see as a condition.
Eric, answer the woman's question about her house that lives next door.
Yes, and so if you look at this plan here, it does include that property up here. And so it is looking to retain the dwelling. And if you look at the zoning map, you can see that north house that's also owned by Mr. Wong is within the commercially zoned area, but he's not impacting that or changing that with his site plan. It's just the additions here where you see these kind of checkered areas on the existing building. So everything's forward, everything's occurring to the university side of the building.
Anything else?
I have a question, Eric. Is there a reason why the west addition is into the building setback and?
Well, I think it's more of a layout situation. So when they had limited opportunities for adding on. This is the shop area back here. And so I think they're expanding areas for showroom and offices, and that was the front part of the building.
Is that something that goes through Board of Adjustment or
It did.
through us?
Yeah,
It did?
that was what I just
Oh.
indicated, yeah.
Okay, I didn't catch that. All right.
Yep. And it should be outlined there in the staff report under the relevant zoning history. But they did grant that just last month.
Any other questions for Eric? Anybody? Thank you, Eric. Will the applicant please come forward, give your name and address?
Hi, I'm Thomas Wong. I don't know what to say, but I think it's a good improvement.
Address.
Do what?
Address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. My home?
Pick one.
Well, 2136 East University, that's the address of this location. And to answer my neighbor's question, we're not doing anything with the house. It's gonna,
Put him down, that's it.
Hi.
You're already on top of it, so.
yeah, no, I know. No, we're not taking any, that house is staying. So, answer her question.
Anything to add?
And all we're doing with this, we're actually losing parking spots. We're enlarging the office only, not the garage, not the shop. This is more office space. It's just to improve it so when our customers come in, there's more room for them to sit, more desk space. It's actually, we're losing about 6 parking spots. So there'll be less cars, more office. And I think when we're done, it'll probably be one of the premier locations for my industry in Des Moines. It'll be a very nice looking place. It already, I think, is one of the top. I mean, we keep it. I've already spent this year $10,000, on keeping the landscaping, upgrading it, putting more stuff in. I mean, and we do that every year. We even have a koi pond in front of it, so I don't, which we get the neighborhood kids up there hanging around it all the time. I mean, it's not we try to make it as friendly as we can.
Are you in agreement with staff's conditions?
Yeah. I told Eric, kind of bothered me that we were going to lose those 2 spots because actually I had negotiated a deal with the city council 15 years ago. We had those spots for 15 years, but it seems to bother somebody on the, planning and zoning. So I'm willing to take those out and make those green again if that's what it takes to make everybody happy,
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Wong?
And Eric had said something about the red. I had hired a contractor to do that. I apologize for it being so bright. It was supposed to be brick colored. I came in on Monday and it was bright red. So we will get that corrected. Actually, I think I'm going to tear that all up and put in you can buy cement that is brick colored and have them stamp it. So that's my plan to do that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else to speak in favor of the application?
I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Corey Sharp. I'm with FPH Associates, the architecture firm that's designing Tom's additions. Like he said, Tom Wong is a long-standing business owner and likes to invest in the east side of Des Moines. And he's recently become, more successful in his business, and he's trying to add more staff at this location. And so that requires us to add some more space to his sales office areas. So this is what we have planned to do, and we hope to get your approval today. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Thank you. Anyone else speak in favor of the application? Anyone speak in opposition to the application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Move staff.
Jack is moving staff. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. Those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Unanimous? Motion passed. So we'll move on to item number 10. A request from ST Investments LLC, represented by Tom Howard, to rezone property at 220 Southeast 6th Street. And I'll read A, B, and C. A is vacation of East Elm Street between Southeast 5th and Southeast 6th Street, adjoining the subject property on the south. B is determination of whether the proposed rezoning is in conformance with the existing Des Moines 2020 Community Character Plan. And C, rezoned from limited C3B, Central Business Mixed Use District, and M1 Light Industrial District to limited C3B, Central Business Mixed Use District, to remove the conditions prohibiting mini warehouse use and requiring the site layout of any development to be in accordance with the Market District of East Village Urban Design Study, to allow the subject property combined with assembled vacated East Elm Street right-of-way, all to be used for development of a mini warehouse complex. Eric.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there's two pieces to this to make this go as the applicant is wishing to go. The first is to vacate a segment of Elm Street here between the newly paved area of Southeast 6th, and then to the west is the Public Works facility for the city. Right now, this has probably millings that have been placed on there by Public Works. They use it for an overflow of parking. It's not vacated, so they park on it. It serves need for them. They've indicated a desire not to vacate it to staff at this point in time, but it's critical to the overall area needed by the applicant to develop their project. So the rezoning then incorporates the whole width then of Elm Street, as well as the south half of the block, which was called Market Square in the original plat of Town of Des Moines. So it's interesting that this stretch from here was contemplated as a market square at one time for the old Town of Des Moines. Give you a sense of what the site area looks like. This is kind of looking east from Southeast 5th Street to, along Elm. And I thought I had, this is a picture looking west at the site. And again, I apologize for see if I can lighten it up for you. Give you a better feel for it. But it's just an undeveloped piece of land right now. You recently had, the north half of the block was the Enterprise Car Rental Facility, recently came in and rezoned, and then also a site plan that you reviewed, so same block. Right now, the market study concept plan would show, now I'm going to have to darken it. This area here, the perimeter was to be sort of lined with the substantial structures along the street edges. In this area now, the applicant's proposing a mini warehouse development. So it's causing them to have to repeal the conditional zoning that's there now that both prohibits mini warehouse and also requires conformance with this Market District, East Village study that would have looked at buildings along the perimeter. The Enterprise Car Rental had to do the same thing when they came in front of you. This is a layout that they're showing, and I'm going to turn it upside down to get north at the top. But this is what they're contemplating. They're offering putting head-in parking along this, and that's actually would be East 5th. It says East Elm, but it's East 5th. This would be the vacated portion of East Elm here, but they're contemplating putting units that would back right onto 5th, but not have access doors, and then smaller storage units in this area between 6th with the maneuvering. So they're really maximizing the land area they're proposing for rezoning. So even looking at this, staff has some concerns just because there isn't any provision or contemplation of open space, edges and that type of thing. So we're very concerned as to how this is going to work physically and still incorporate the elements we like to see, like parking perimeters, open space, landscaping, drainage, that type of thing. So without actually having a design level site plan to make those comments, though, all we can do is be concerned right now. I'm going to show you the consent map. And here's the cards too, since Ted stepped out. No, the cards that we've received are in support. One of them's the salvage operation over here, and then we have two over here with the oil company, Diamond Oil. So two properties, but one card. From staff's perspective, we just are concerned about deviating away from the contemplation long-term of the market, East Village Market District Study area. And when we start to add improvements that are significant, those are harder to take away when it's time to start developing in the spirit of the plan. So from that perspective, we are not wanting to recommend in favor of anything that will remove that condition or that requirement that development comply with that plan over time, because it'll take that much more effort than if something develops to redevelop it. We looked at the Enterprise car just a little bit differently in the fact that it was pretty much going to be flat work and the existing building that's already there. So we weren't as concerned about the ability to redevelop that in the future. So allowing that was not the same situation as what we're asking here, which is significant storage unit development along here. The secondary thing here is losing Elm Street, which at some point may be important again as a public street, as a connection. And certainly it shows up in the market district study as a through street. So once we vacate that, then it's going to be very hard to condemn again for getting that grid connection through there. So right now we're recommending denial of the vacation. We're recommending denial of the rezoning as proposed.
Is that it?
Yes, any questions?
Any questions? CJ?
I have a question. You mentioned about parking for Public Works in this area. Is that part of the Public Works building that's going to be moving to the new location within some period of time?
Yes, over time we would expect that function would shift away from this area too.
So
I'm just indicating they've expressed immediate concern about losing that in the near term.
Parking space. So ultimately, this area will become available to some development because Public Works moving out of that building.
Yes, if we're following what we see
Okay.
here, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Eric? Thank you. Can we hear from the applicant, please? Name and address?
Good evening, my name is Bernie Ventil, 2808 Virginia Place in Des Moines. First of all, thank you all for your service. There are some here this evening that would suggest this is a black and white issue. In fact, as I was so convinced of it, I wore my shirt today that has some black, some white, but you notice it's mostly gray. And that's what we have here this evening. I'd like to tell you a little bit about S.T. Howard Investments. I represent them tonight. They were involved with Brown Camp, the first floor, and they worked out the major part with Meredith. If you remember, that was a real nice showcase for those loft apartments. They also were involved with the Tone Building and completely did that into lofts for this community. They took Capitol Village lofts and converted those to condominiums, and they're right up the street here and doing very well. In addition to that, they did E5W, which is on 5th and Walnut, which was a major investment in this community. And they also were involved with the Bar Association building. The truth is, the Howards have been good people in this community. They've been good for Des Moines and the loft and retail business. So now I'd like to focus, if we could, on the subject sites. And I would paint a little different picture. Would you? Yeah, bring it out. You want to see the whole thing. Thank you. You know, some time ago, Jay Christensen came by to S.T. Howard and Tom and suggested that he had federal money for spot zoning for some apartments. And Howards were nice enough to say, okay, we want to sell our land, so we'll give you the permission to go through the zoning process. The issue becomes is this was clearly spot zoning. Within the circle here, you can certainly see everything around it is M1. The only thing that's not is you got the River District over here, but to the north, everything else is M1. And then the C3B is along Court Avenue. And then they're suggesting that we have to comply with this for that zoning. And then that, of course, would take out the mini storage. The truth is that after the funding fell apart for this federal housing thing that went together, this should have been just returned to M1, period. And we wouldn't be discussing this tonight. So, and you can clearly see this was spot zoning because everything else around it is clearly M1. So I'd like to further offer that if in fact down the road we are able to get Mid-America to move on and they own the entire yellow portion there, that's a lot of real estate, ladies and gentlemen. And if there's going to be some development from the river out, I would suggest that in fact this corridor right here would be a great place to have a buffer between the residential on this side and the commercial, which is going to remain on this side. You got some heavy-duty tanks here. We've discussed with Alan. They don't plan on leaving anytime soon. And of course, the other people here, the recycler, he's very happy and he wants to stay there for some time to come. So this is clearly spot zoning. It should be returned to M1, but the only way to do that is not to apply for M1, but to go through the zoning request that Eric helped us with. And again, this is a very gray issue. The other issue is this is going to be increased tax base for the construction cost. And Dave wants to purchase East Elm, which would take that street off the no tax income coming in and put it on the tax rolls. And frankly, in this community, I've talked to some people, and I'd like to show you a little better picture than what Eric had. Here's the use of the land, and the
the person that came back said it was substantially used, and that's why they wanted to not have it happen. I've been taking pictures on this site for some time in anticipation of some kind of answer like that, and I have to tell you, there's nothing substantial being parked on this for any time soon, or hasn't been. And they threw in the snowplow issue. We've been lucky in terms of, I may have a video from over a year past that shows how often the snowplows have been on this property. It's surveillance video from one of the people that are supporting us. So it'd be interesting to have the department head actually put in writing how often they're using that. And of course, the other issue is if this isn't on the, it's going to go on the tax base. We have a person here in the department that, is objecting to raising taxes, and obviously this city's interested in having a higher tax base. We're providing that with the 2200 East 6th Street development, and by adding over $1 million worth of assets to this, which is going to be taxed. So we'd love to have both properties, but tonight you could certainly pass the 220 as being approved, and we'll still talk about the street at a later time. I'd like to introduce you to the buyer. Please welcome Mr. Fegley.
Hello. My name is Dave Fegley. I live at 3100 Southwest 38th Place in Des Moines, Iowa. Where do you put this thing? Where's the monitor?
Over to your left.
Just set it on top of that.
Oh, right here?
The newspaper is.
Oh,
Right on top.
Yeah, okay. I've been in the self-storage manufacturing or building business for about 30 years. I've built probably 15 facilities around the country. This facility, Bernie brought up to me about 6 months ago, and we researched quite a bit of it, and knowing that with the East Village, the downtown lofts, the apartments, things that the city was, that had been growing in this, in the community, truly needed some storage, because at lofts you don't have storage space. Some of the East Village businesses have shown an interest in storing their overstock of materials, things like this for holidays and things. This facility is a mixture of climate control buildings, so you have a temperature control, humidity control main building, has smaller units, buildings that have just standard storage, 10 by 10s, 10 by 15s, 5 by 10s, 10 by 20s, and then we have some larger units that are the storage facilities for boats, campers, RVs, things like this, that people in the East Village own, but they don't keep them around here. They keep them up on 141 or somewhere like that. This would allow them to have a space provided to store that. Here are the 18 by 50s are here. These units have side doors so they can access them without opening the main door. The space here where Eric was talking about was, or Bernie was saying here, we provided about 19 or 20 spaces for the people from the city to park. We thought since we had a zero lot line area here that we would pull the facility forward and allow that to be a parking area. The facility has 24-hour access. It has a kiosk for people to rent in all hours, on weekends, nights. It's a state-of-the-art surveillance system within the hallways and around the perimeter of the facility. You have an entrance gate over here and an exit gate over here. There'll be an on-site manager, at least 8 to 4, and on the weekends the facility will be managed basically by the kiosk. The kiosk actually rents the space, takes their payment in forms of a check, money order, cash, credit card, debit card, things like this. So it does lie in a vestibule, and it has 24/7 access. The facility also, we're wrapping it with a product called Nichiha panel. It's a brick look. I think I have a photo of that. I just finished this project recently. This is in Carlisle, Iowa. This is a brick product that we put on as panels. It goes on much like siding, but it looks a lot like brick. In fact, it doesn't look like brick. This is, we're just finishing this up, and this is finished just exactly the way I explained it before, with access gates. You have a touchpad on each one of these gates, so every person has their own code, and they access and they exit by that code. So it's like I say, it's a state-of-the-art facility. I'm open for any questions.
Any questions for Dave? CJ?
Have you spoken to the East Village Neighborhood Association or the Business District Association?
We missed their last meeting. We did talk to the president. What was it?
Josh and...
Yeah, we did talk to just a couple of them, Mark, but we were too late to get the into their meeting. They had a full agenda, so we sort of had to delay it.
So, okay, so
Yeah.
you really haven't discussed it with them?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Just, we sent some things out to them so they could review them, but basically the only question we got back is that it wasn't zoned properly for it, and we've explained why that, but the other, it wasn't conforming to the proposed, what do you call that, the design of the property, of the area?
The overlay.
Master plan.
Master plan, yeah, master plan. So that was the only thing that they sort of disagreed with, but as we looked further into it, when you have a recycle company across the street, an oil company down the street, Mid-America there, it's going to be a long time for that to happen. His concern was, would I be willing to sell this down the road to the city or somebody, tear it down, and within that period of time, if it's 20 years from now, I won't be here anyway. But whoever wants it, they can do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other, Greg?
If this were approved, did you have any intention of doing landscaping and sidewalks and things around the perimeter? It looked like you had maxed out your site.
Well, we asked about the sidewalks here, okay? And, Eric, I didn't think they were required. Were they on the front of that? That's why I
On the
pulled.
street side?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if,
I think I asked a question in the pre-app meeting, and there was a question on whether or not they were.
it's in the public right away though, that's.
Yeah, right. Over here is A.J. Allen, over on Elm Street. And there's a fence and a lot of equipment sitting over there. Yes, if I could use 5 to 10 feet of that to put some trees in there, I can do that. On the north side, over here on the exit side, I could probably put trees in that section too.
Thank you.
It'd squeeze the driveways, but it can be done.
The southeast 6th Street project provided the sidewalks, so
Okay.
that was already in place unless you were gonna damage it or.
No, I wouldn't go, no.
Construction process.
So it's already in place, Greg.
Any other questions? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else to speak in favor of the application?
Mr. Chairman, we have with us this evening a petition that I'd like to show. And here are a list of property owners who are supporting this. In addition, I gave you a handout with the letter from the recycle person. And if I could borrow, where's the big one? This one. So here's the list of the people around it, and that would include then,
Do you want to use this?
Well, I got it color coded.
Okay.
So Alan is here, he's approved it. Diamond Oil over here, the recycler, and they own up to here. ST Howard and the new buyer have approved it, they're here. The only people I have not is the scrap people, and they have their reasons for not, and we don't need to go into that. And the other people, of course, everything else is M1. And so we've got all the people that were sent out with the exception of the association is in support of what we're doing. And we missed our meetings.
He said the scrap people gave us a card in favor of it.
They did? Great,
Yeah,
okay.
on that map here.
This one?
No, that one.
This one? So everyone's in favor?
Well, these two came in favor independently of anything you showed on your list.
Good, okay, great. So that concludes the favorable reports.
Anything else, Bernie?
Well, only that, some of the game changers for the long-term plan, I would just suggest that Hy-Vee coming into town is going to change some market issues in this town. And another major player is going to be the Ryan development that bought out of the principal product. There's going to be a lot of development going on over there. And then I would just basically go back to the core issue, is this was spot zoning. It shouldn't have been done. It ought to go back to M1. And I throw myself at the mercy of the court. And I would definitely like to have the street put on hold for right now, because these are my pictures, and the most I've ever found is 12 cars on that lot. And to have a person say it's substantially used, that would be 75% or more, and it's about 25%. So I'd like clarification on how important this land is, the vacant street, but we can certainly approve the 220 tonight. Thank you.
Anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone to speak opposed? See none, I'll entertain a motion. Oh,
Jen?
CJ?
The photo that you showed of public city vehicles parked was in the summer. I think the information we have says that they mainly use it during snow removal time. Do you have anything that shows how many vehicles are parked there when we have snow?
We'd have to go to the security tape of this company and see what's there. So I just would suggest let's have the department head explain in good detail how they use it, and we can address that question. But, there's the property just, Aaron, can I have your help here? Where's that? This is us. This street right here, has the city on this side, and here's the scrap dealer on this side. This is complete, and there's 3-4 signs right along here that says do not park here. On either side of the road, well, this is all railroad or knocked-in railroad. I can't imagine why the trucks can't use that as their queuing or whatever it is they're doing. They should be able to move there without any problem whatsoever. So I'd just like an explanation of
Thank you.
what it means. I don't know what they can justify.
Motion?
But it's not paying taxes now. Thank you. Anything else?
Motion, please. No. Will is moving staff recommendation. Any discussion? I think we have to, do we have to at least separate out A?
Yeah.
And then B?
If there's discussion?
Go ahead, Greg.
Just want to sort of throw a few thoughts out to everyone. I do a lot of work in this area of town and have completed some projects in this area of town. I would suggest at a minimum, and maybe it's a friendly amendment, that we break this apart into talking about the rezoning of the property that they currently own. I think that's a legitimate, separate conversation. And then the second piece being the vacation or proposed vacation of the street, because that's a different issue. Again, speaking with some experience in this area, there's been lots of projects that are in the sort of on the wish list and things that people would like to do. It is going to take quite some time for anything resembling that master plan to happen, as all of you probably know. So my initial thought is we just don't want to do something to preclude it more than anything else. I do think an owner has a right to use his land and to make a fair profit on that land. That makes sense to me. So for me personally, it's just the street issue is probably more the bigger one, if we're willing to give up the street, thinking that that may have an active role in future plans or not. So anyway, I would offer that to you.
I would, my real concern is the street vacation. That's a huge thing. Harlan Bartholomew, who was the great city planner that came here in the 1920s, criticized, he was one of the great city planners in the nation, criticized the city of Des Moines for the city having to allow so many dead ends, so many dog legs in this city, hundreds and hundreds of them. And over the years, we've paid the price of having to rationalize a maze of streets. 34th Street is just one of many examples. This is my major concern here. And if the commission thinks that it's appropriate for the zoning to return to the way it was, I'm amenable to that.
Okay, well, it's broken out. We're going to talk about Part A, so let's
Mr.
just...
Chair.
Pardon?
I would like to suggest maybe we should continue this, as we have questions for Public Works and the use of that street. And we also probably should hear from the East Village Business District. I mean, I 100% agree that there's a need for this business in that area. But I think we need buy-in from several more people that we don't have right now. So I just offer that.
We have a motion for staff, so we have to deal with that first. So will you want to take back your motion, or do we need to vote on it and then go ahead? Because right now we have a move staff. Will?
It's moving staff with the friendly amendment that Greg had suggested.
Yes.
Into two.
The motion is move staff. So we can vote on that. And if it gets denied, then we got to dredge it up again.
Yeah.
Is that okay, CJ? Okay. So we're going to do Part A, which is the street vacation. So if there's no further discussion, we're going to vote on it. So those in favor of staff, which is denial, raise your right hand. Opposed? Joanne. Okay. And then, well, let's just do that's street vacation. The next, Part B is not in conformance with 2020. Let's do that separately, just because. So, any discussion about that? No. Okay, we're going to vote on it. Those in favor of staff recommendation, and that is not in conformance, raise your right hand. Opposed? No one. All right, and C is the meat of the request, which is the rezoning. And staff is recommending denial, and so that's the way Will left it, so your vote is for denial. So those, go ahead, Jack.
Yeah.
The spot zoning thing rings true. Of course, we've all attended seminars in our positions as commissioners on spot zoning. Eric, I think I know what the deal was there, and you give a history in our handout here, but why did we do that?
At the time, I think when we were doing a whole...
Only a year ago.
Yeah, well, it was, the C3B was done for the Christensen request, and it was an entire city block, so I guess we've never envisioned or seen any rezoning an entire city block at all as a spot zoning. Now, it's clearly an island within the midst of the...
Isn't the C3B, though, isn't that an overlay? We talked about this years ago when that plan came forward, and so that's the way we're...
Yeah, the C3B was put there because when it was M1, the housing project wouldn't wouldn't be allowed under M1.
So it's not, in my view, it's not really spot. We're matching a master plan that's been approved by our board and council.
Thank you.
So it's, spot zoning is just arbitrary, not, we go out somewhere and do a spot. So I guess I disagree the notion that it's spot zoning. Whether or not it should go back to M1 is yet a question.
I didn't say it necessarily was. I wanted a response
It
to
is
the
spot
allegation.
E.
Yeah, I don't think we agree with that conclusion that it's a spot zoning, that it had been a spot zoning. I think we've incrementally zoned areas in the East Village in accordance with the long-range plan, so.
So Jack, any other discussion about Part C?
Yeah, I have a question. If we defeat the rezoning that the city has said we should defeat, then would there be another motion to rezone it to the M1 that it was originally?
I think we'd want to
Or-
re-advertise that if we're going to look at another zoning
Or
category.
does CJ want to make a motion about continuation? I would like to see it continue, because I think we could use some more information. It's a legitimate business.
I guess if there's a desire to continue the consideration of the zoning, you wouldn't want to do that after. You would take a vote one way or the other, I guess. It'd be better just to hold off on voting of it and.
So, in my view, it's up to Will, because it's his motion.
Yeah.
Would he accept right now a continuance on the rezoning portion, or do we need to go ahead and vote? And would the applicant accept a continuance? I guess we need to ask that, because if not, then we can approve or deny, and it can go on to council.
Yes, sure.
Yes, okay, so, they'd accept it, so Will.
Then we voted on the A part.
And B.
And B. So if I can amend my motion that's already been presented on the floor, I move that we continue Part C to another time.
That works.
Were you wanting to also reconsider A and B, or that?
We voted on that.
Because but you could vote, yeah. That would go on to the city council in the interim, so. Just so you know that.
So A and B would go on without a zoning recommendation.
It will, unless,
But can't the council control the flow and sort of
Yes, they-
slow down A and B until C catches up with it?
they would have to, they would have to set the hearing for any consideration of it, so.
The next council action typically would be just, excuse me.
Receive and file.
Receiving and filing the recommendation. I don't see any reason why the receive and file on vacation item couldn't also go at the same time as the receive and file the rezoning item.
So you're saying we would just park it until the rest of it came along? Okay.
I also know that those can go independently of each other as well.
So let's just leave it alone and C, and Will's revised C is to continue until,
Do you want a month? Do you want to the next meeting?
well, I
You're
think
gonna
we
meet
have to
with
have
them.
enough
Neighborhood
time
meeting
to
was
answer the
the.
question.
Yeah.
Neighborhood group,
Yeah.
How often do they meet?
Couple of weeks and.
I think it's 2 weeks.
Well, let's do a month.
Okay, yeah,
I
because
think
otherwise
2
we'll be
weeks.
right on the heels of that meeting, so.
Good, because we have a very full agenda, and we're not even sure.
Do you want 45?
Yes.
That's fine. So that would be,
The first meeting in September.
yes, okay? So now the motion is to continue Part C to first meeting in September. Everyone with us? Okay. Those in favor of continuing, raise your right hand. Opposed? No one. Okay. So that confusing item is continued. And now we'll go on to item 12. Item 12, request from Kent Mock, purchaser, Rycon LLC owner, represented by David Isaacson, and JB Doors Partnership owner, represented by Marvin Jones, for vacation of following segments of right-of-way generally located south of Southwest Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway, north of Elm Street, west of Southwest 5th Street, and east of Southwest 7th Street. And I'm not going to read those again. Eric.
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is a kind of a joint request between two property owners that both have a property interest in the intervening the segments of land and right-of-way that they are wanting to acquire from the city. And to just give you a feel here, it might be actually easier to show you on the consent map because the ownerships are shown. Right now, one of the applicants, JB Doors, right here, owns this strip that's between Elm Street and the City of Des Moines real estate that was left over from the West ML King project. And then Rycon LLC owns a parcel in this area with some real estate to the north of it and Elm Street to the south. So in both applicants' situation, they have adjoining ownership interests here. In addition, Rycon has a parcel over here that also adjoins Elm Street on the south edge that they're asking for. So the golden area represents the area that would need to be vacated from being right-of-way. And then if you look at this figure, this shows, if I can get it to focus, take the stuff underneath it here. This shows a general boundary of the area that they want to develop and purchase the right-of-way and real estate from the city to accomplish. And so this shows how it would lay out potentially to achieve what they're looking to do, which is provide additional parking while also doing landscaping and preserving the edge along ML King, Southwest 7th, and Southeast 5th. They would still be preserving traffic movement along Elm over to the north-south alley, which is right here. They're looking to narrow that down by about 9 feet here on this part right here, which I believe leads 29 feet of right-of-way remaining. At one point, they previously, portion of Elm Street up here was already vacated, so I'm sorry, not that part, up here. So over time, some areas of Elm Street have already been vacated, but there is still this need to preserve that movement. If we look, and I passed around the comment card, one of the concerns and objections raised is that they're concerned about the ability for trucks that maneuver east on Elm and then turn south down the north-south alley to be able to back into this loading dock that I'm pointing at with the pen here on the southeast corner of the building. And our traffic and transportation staff have looked at this. The 9 feet here was already considered once in the past. It never was vacated because the owner never wanted to follow through with the project that took the land or that needed the land. But this was reviewed once before. And the traffic analysis then was that movement could be accomplished. And I've reaffirmed that with Jennifer McCoy, the city traffic engineer. She's indicated that truck maneuvering should be able to be accomplished within that remaining 29 feet of street right-of-way. So from our staff perspective, with the objection and concern raised, we still are recommending in favor of the vacations as requested.
Any questions for Eric?
I've got some photos of these areas if you want to see them too.
Please.
This is kind of looking, you can see White Line Lofts in the background, but looking east down Elm Street here. So this is the area that's sort of ad hoc parking. The land that JB Doors owns is right here, and there's vehicles parked there. This is looking from, I think, 6th. So this building here is JB Doors. I don't know if I can lighten it up here. I think this is the, so 6th Street sort of crosses right, Southwest 6th crosses right through here. And then, so you have this area. And then this is looking at the east end of it from where the project for ML King closed off the east end of Elm, right here. So this part would be vacated, but is already not used for the traveled portion of the street, so.
Thank you, Eric.
Any questions?
The applicant, please come up. No, go ahead.
Eric, as your photos show, Elm Street, that once was really a street, is becoming, beginning and an ending and so forth, but it's an important frontage street in certain areas. My question is, does the city have any vision about what Elm Street should become in this area along ML King?
Well, this is kind of where it starts to get more narrow. They vacated to the west of here for Hubble's projects, Rocket Transfer, and I forget the name of the Lofts project right now off the top of my head. River Point Lofts, or, yeah. So further west down the line, it's been done. The way we've kind of looked at this is looked at it to say, is this another developable area that we could have provided buildings or row houses or something of that nature? And it's just not to the depth that we need for that, but we want to have this edge along the ML King extension. And so we need to have we wanted to preserve some level of open space. And, I think where Elm Street still functionally is necessary, we aren't wanting to eliminate it. So in order to occupy these buildings here with reuse of them, the parking demand is great, and the pressure with additional housing projects is starting to put more pressure for parking on the streets too. So this is...
Yeah, I don't have a problem with this. My real interest, quite frankly, is onto the east.
Yeah, I don't have anything that really I don't know if it's really been contemplated segment by segment what we're doing with it. As it's come up though, where those areas where we don't have that developable area between the parkway and the street, we either want to preserve it as open space edge, or if it's large enough like this piece, we can do both by getting some parking in there to support surrounding uses that we want to remain, and then still preserving that edge along the parkway.
Some of these businesses rely on Elm Street, substantially for access, because the way that the parkway is designed, the city isn't going to allow a curb cut in there. I'm just wondering if the city has any kind of a vision about how to handle this property.
Yeah, I would say there's no kind of cohesive approach to how we're probably looking at it more a case by case. We don't have a comprehensive thought as to how that, we have if you look at the River Point plan, it wants to preserve that edge.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Eric? Applicant, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Dan Manning. Address 317 6th Avenue, Suite 300, along with my partner, Bridget Kautsky. We are here tonight representing Kent Mock with Encore Properties, Marvin Jones with JB Doors, and Rycon LLC. The owner of Rycon LLC is Richard Isaacson. I think to amplify on the presentation, and I guess I would begin by saying that we concur in the staff recommendations that are before you this evening. I'm going to start with, just to amplify on the presentation made, see if, that back so you can see it. As I said, it seemed like such a good color at the time. There we go. To give you some perspective, we're looking at, this is Southwest 5th Street, this is Southwest 7th with 6th being in between. And we did this design to show, to amplify that Rycon is the owner of this property that Eric had mentioned before, and the JB Doors is the owner of this property in white, and the area in yellow is the area that we're looking to purchase from the city. The area to the north of the ownership of JB Doors and to the north, it does not need to be vacated, but it is property to be acquired from the city in order to move forward with the project that we're looking for. Kent Mock is in the process of purchasing this property located right along 5th. The address is 300 Southwest 5th Street, and is looking for an opportunity to deal with, frankly, an issue that ad hoc happens right now, and that's parking along this area. My meeting with staff, we've talked about and how we can do this in a manner that's consistent with everything that's going on down in this area. We know that there's no access along Southwest 5th, and that's shut off or closed off for a reason, because of the size of the intersection and the importance of that intersection along Southwest 5th Street and MLK. And we also know that there's, like I say, I think the word Eric used was ad hoc parking along these areas. We have some photos too, but the photos that Eric had, I think, are descriptive of the fact that people are parking in that area. Important issue that Mr. Page raised, I think we wholeheartedly agree with, is that Elm Street needs to stay open, remain open, and will remain open under the plan that we've proposed. And we also have Chuck Bishop with us here from Bishop Engineering. I think I'm going to ask him to come up and talk to you about the layout, the sketch that we've developed. We recognize that this is not a site plan and that this is not a site plan review, and we'll have to come back to you with a site plan that can be more detailed and address the concerns that we know will need to be raised as we look at this property. But on behalf of JB Doors, whose property is 300 Southwest 6th, you can kind of see that we're talking about the Mock property here, Bierman Electric right here, and JB Doors, this property right here. And under this proposal, this will utilize space that frankly has been utilized for parking in the past. You have the photo. I don't know if we can lighten that up at all, but that's obviously Southwest 5th looking to the west. When you're looking from MLK looking back toward, I think this is a photo that's Bierman Electric directly to the south. You can see there's some parking going on in that area already, and has been. We know that there's been some issues from City of Des Moines zoning enforcement about parking within this area. So the goal is to try to do this development of this parking area in a manner that's consistent with everyone's goal is for beautification. We know that one of the requirements that the city has is to have a decorative fence surround this property, and Chuck can get into that. That's one of the things that we're showing on this concept plan. And then the other thing is to make sure that Elm Street continues to function properly. You can see this wide mouth here, because we recognize that Elm Street needs to stay open and allow for movement from south from Elm Street along 6th and along this alley that is between the Bierman property and between the Mock property. Now, this morning we met with representatives of Bierman Electric, and I know Jim Shizzle is here this evening, and in that conversation we understood and we understand that their focus is on making sure that this movement is preserved, this ability not just for trucks but semis, because semis load and unload out of this area along this alleyway. And And we've made the commitment to Mr. Shizzle that we're going to work with him as we put together a site plan to ensure, and we're kind of showing that in our concept plan right now. So at this time, I just ask Chuck Bishop to step forward and visit with you about that plan.
Again, Chuck Bishop with Bishop Engineering, 3501 104th Street. As Dan indicated, what we've shown here is just a concept plan. To give you some idea of scale, this opening here is probably about 65 to 70 feet wide. So we kind of allowed for that area to allow the trucks to come in, swing out in this area, then turn back down, because then they come back to the truck dock down here. So they'd come down this alley, back in. But we looked at both ways we can get trucks in and out, going either direction, and still allow that to be moved. Again, we'll kind of massage that a little bit if need be during the site plan process, where we could pull this nose back even further if necessary. We're leaving a minimum of 26-foot traveled way between the parking and the existing edge of sidewalks. So you still have a normal street width, two-way street width there as you head down to the alley here. Basically, we have two entrances, one that lines up with the alley between doors, JB Doors, and the new Hubble project here. So that lines up there. This one lines up with the alley over here. We did not do one opposite 6, just to allow that movement to be made a little bit easier. People coming out of 6. There is trucks that come down 6, then go back into the JB Doors. They have a truck dock entrance just south of Elm Street here. So we have about a total of about a little over 100 parking spaces shown in there. We are showing, the city staff did want a sidewalk connection from Elm back up to ML King. We're doing that along 6th. We also will have another sidewalk connection out of here, out to Southwest 5th, to allow access to the front of the mock property as well. And then in addition, we have agreed to put in the decorative wrought iron fence along the north property lines in this location, along 6th, all along ML King, and then back along Southwest 5th with a little break here where the sidewalks will cut through those. I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have. Yes.
At the far east edge of the parking, where the alley is there between, right there where your finger is.
Yep.
There's that green overhang. It looks like it hangs over the alley, that island thing you have there.
Yeah. That's,
Did that encroach on the alleyway, and is that part of the Bierman problem?
It's actually, it goes right to the back of the building. It's just kind of the way the picture's looking here. The back of the building actually for the mock property is right at that end of the alley.
So the island lines up with the edge of the building?
Yep, with the end of the building and the alley, the east side of the alley.
Okay.
The aerial's a little skewed.
It's a little skewed from the
Right.
drawing. Yep.
All right.
Anything else?
Nothing else unless you have any other questions.
Don't see any. Anyone else to speak in favor of the project?
Marvin Jones, 1350 Northeast 80th Street, Pleasant Hill. I'm Doors Incorporated. We employ 60 people there, and we need this for parking. And end of story. Thanks.
Anyone else to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, anyone to speak in opposition to the application?
Jim Chisel, 512 Elm Street. I think they put a good team and a good project together here. My concern is vacating 9 feet of Elm Street and making this turn for any kind of deliveries or trucks. Our building, everything is really compacted down there. There's been a lot of building going on, and everything is squeezed in, and I just hate to lose that 9 feet. I think that's a mistake. I think we need that room for truck access.
Any questions for Jim? Greg?
Just out of curiosity, if that is the bone of contention, would you be willing to go out there and set up some cones and take some trucks in and out?
Sure. I mean, they hit my building now. I don't know what 9 feet's gonna do to them.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I wonder, that's funny, Greg. I wonder if Mr. Bishop has been in a 18-wheeler trying to negotiate that area. And that's just an observation. We're both smiling.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in opposition? Seeing none, you need rebuttal. Dan?
Mr. Chairman, I would just point out that we appreciated the conversation this morning with the folks from Bierman. We intend to work with them as we move through this process. To me, that's the rebuttal. We certainly respect the fact that based upon how their building is set up and how their docks are set up, they need to be able to make that maneuver. We think they can. I know that when we made our submittal, we wanted to make sure that it was reviewed, and I know that Eric made sure that it was reviewed by traffic to address that concern. One thing about the 9 feet, it's necessary because of the geography there. As you move to the east, it narrows, and that's the purpose behind it. I know that it was part of a submission that was made back in, I think, 2006. It ultimately didn't happen based upon the fact that the previous owner, or present owner, just chose to not move forward with the expense and the development of that area for parking. But we certainly are ready to move forward. So thank you.
Dan, did I hear you say you are working with traffic and transportation on the feasibility of this narrowing Elm Street there, or how far you can narrow it in their opinion?
That's correct.
To enable the usefulness of the alley?
Mr. Hilmes, that is correct.
Thank you.
And I think that was part of Eric's presentation, and I'm sure he could speak to that as well.
Great.
So, if I'm not mistaken, really the only issue is this little sliver of paving where you have the number 11 written. That little gray sliver of paving that dips down into the 9-foot area, and I think that triangle might go across, where the number 11 is written. Thank you. Right below that, yes, that triangle that affects 3, maybe 4 spaces. Is that really the issue here, that if the paving of Elm went up to the property line, that 9 feet, which is what I think we're talking about, are we really only talking about modifying those 3 spaces, making those 3 spaces work in a different way, and then the 9 feet will be back?
I'll let Mr. Bishop respond to that, Mr. Whiting.
Yeah, Greg, that's pretty close. I mean, what we tried to do here is show we have some, the required green space, in front of the parking space. So that's why we had to get that extra 9 feet in order to get that all squeezed in there. If we're allowed not to have the green space in there, then we would end up losing almost all these spaces along here. Because the existing pavement for Elm Street, basically along that darker line right up in here, and ends as you go up. So it's along that line right there is where that existing pavement ends now. So if you left all that in, we would lose most of those stalls. We'd lose almost all those stalls there because we wouldn't have that depth there to do it.
I really think there's a solution probably here. I mean, I think it's fantastic, this project being done, cleaning up this property along MLK, providing these additional parking spaces for the workers. And if it's about negotiating with staff some interior landscape area that's not necessary, maybe those 3 spaces are compact spaces, maybe the 24-foot width space between the parking could go down to 22. I mean, I have to believe that there's where he could get the 9 feet back and at least have the exact same conditions that he has today. A solution could be rendered if you guys worked on it.
Yeah, we were, again, that's part of the site plan. We can look at that some more. The options we looked at is getting parking, reducing the parking setback a little bit from off of ML King, reducing the parking space depth from 18 down to 16, you know, and then all of a sudden you pick up 2 foot up here, you pick up 2 feet down there. If you reduce the setback requirements from Elm Street and from ML King, you're going to pick up that you almost get it all back. So I mean, there's ways to get it to work out. I think those are things we can work out once we come back with a final site plan. And I think we can get, you know, make sure that we can make everybody happy.
I would have a motion if no one else wants to talk.
CJ?
So I guess my only question is, does this satisfy the problem that the gentleman from Doors has with the necessary parking? Does this satisfy your requirement that you need the parking? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, and then I'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I wanted to point out one thing. I failed to go over the 4 points, and we made a modification to number 3 based on timing. The City Council this past Monday set the hearing for the July 28th City Council meeting for disposition of the property consideration. And so, but the way that statement reads, the applicant was interpreting that as requiring a full site plan approval before the property could transfer to them. And so staff was willing to make that adjustment to say a concept site sketch, which is really what we have here, so that we can evaluate the things that we're talking about. I did also want to make a qualification on what Greg said. Like, if you're reducing the maneuvering aisle to 22 feet, that would require a Board of Adjustment action, and they are still obligated to have a 5-foot minimum along, because this will still be public street here, so that's actually a parking lot perimeter, not an interior island like it would be if it was vacated completely. So those two things would actually not be a staff discretion thing, that would be a Board of Adjustment thing, so.
Anything else? Close the public hearing and entertain a motion. Dory's moving staff. Any discussion?
So,
Greg?
You're okay with it as drawn, and he doesn't get the extra 9 feet? I think that's what you're saying, right? Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Will?
The case that Greg has made makes good sense to me. If I were trying to maneuver a truck in here, I'd...
You hit the building.
Several times. And since the applicant is willing to negotiate with this, I think all the more reason to add some flexibility to the plan.
So if the applicant's willing to work something out, isn't that going to happen anyway? I mean, they said that.
How do we put those?
Isn't what we've heard here that they plan to come back with a site plan that's going to have to see our approval and meet the needs of the Biermans?
That's not what I heard. The site plan wouldn't come to the Plan and Zoning Commission. That would be an administrative review. So.
That's right.
And then if it needed relief, it would go to the Board of Adjustment potentially.
Okay, so.
Well, there's a motion, but can I ask?
You want a minute?
Go ahead, Greg.
Can I ask a question? For the group all on this side, the non-Bierman group, would you guys be willing to agree to keeping the existing width of Elm all the way to that alley? Meaning working out your parking, and you might have to go to Board of Adjustment, working out landscaping, or is that something you're not willing to agree to?
The bottom line is they'll get less parking.
Not if they get relief from Board of Adjustment. That's not true. You could get Board of Adjustment relief. We're making them think. I like
Maybe the question is, do any of the employees drive motorcycles?
Can we request that it comes back to planning and zoning?
I'd like to hear their answer real quick. Right now, the role of the commission is strictly to determine is there a public necessity for this right-of-way? And we got to be careful about stipulations. There's certainly things that the council can put on with the sale of the land as conditions or restrictions, but really that's not in the purview of the Plan and Zoning Commission. So if this was a site plan consideration or a rezoning consideration, then we would probably be in the purview of the Plan and Zoning Commission, but in this case I would say you're sort of getting outside of that.
Have you pondered, Dan? Dan as representative of the non-Beerman group?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Dan Manning, 317 6th Avenue, Suite 300, Des Moines. I think the only commitment that we can make is that our willingness to work with Beerman, but the 9 feet, based upon the geography, based upon the narrowing as you move east along the street, I think we need to make the acquisition. It's our position that we need to acquire that 9 feet. It doesn't mean that we can't work things out. It may require going to the Board of Adjustment to accommodate, as I told Mr. Cornelius, who's also representative of Beerman, when we talked on the phone this afternoon. We're making a commitment to work this out so that it can accommodate everyone. But as we stand here right now, we have a lot to work through with the site plan and develop that and get that approved by the staff. I think it's clear that we're committed to working with Beerman Electric, but I don't think we're in a position to, at this stage, to say we cannot. I think we need that 9 feet.
Okay. Jack?
Right now, I see a public need for the right-of-way. So, you hear what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah. I like what you're doing, I don't want to vote against you. That was the strongest form of encouragement I can give.
So we have Dory's motion for staff approval. Are we friendly amending it or just leaving it alone and seeing where it goes?
Can I ask one more question?
Go ahead, Greg.
Can you explain number 3 again? So it is or isn't coming back, the site plan? I'm confused.
So the site plan would never come back necessarily unless there was some other stipulation in the sale of the land itself by the council, because it's an administrative type review and it's not a zoning category that brings it to the commission. The other thing is, the way it was written, there was concern that an actual site plan under the ordinance would have to be signed, sealed, and approved before the transfer of the land could take place, when the intent was really we wanted to see a sketch of how this would be necessary for the development and still accommodate the public needs. So we wanted the council to have a sketch or a schematic to be able to consider in those questions that are coming up. So,
Can we require staff to get Mr. Beerman's approval of the administrative review of the site plan, or is that something we can't do? I mean, how do we know that there's an assurance that...
The control. Or how do we implore staff to see our view in their site plan?
We've already looked at it, and we think it can be accomplished with what's being requested. So there's obviously other concern, but and I'm seeing concern amongst the commissioners too.
Did you drive the truck through there to see?
I don't drive trucks, but the things that were looked at is the assumption that we're dealing with licensed commercial haulers and drivers and that have the skills. So, the templates are based on those talents.
What do you want to see?
I think an immediate, more practical concern also is that, as Eric mentioned, or Dan mentioned, we have set this for hearing for council for the 28th, meaning that the rezoning, the vacation and the sale of the property will go to council the 28th. And so if we're looking at excluding a part of the area to be vacated, council will make that determination whether they're going to be selling and vacating that part or not. On the 28th, staff cannot thereafter make a determination when they're reviewing the site plan.
Why do you ask
us to do this if it's already on the council's agenda?
And it's already decided.
Oh, it's not decided. Council still needs to receive your recommendation.
well.
I can just say what your recommendation is.
I can't even hear what she's saying.
This, as you know, this is not our standard practice. However, we're trying, my understanding is their closing is set to occur on the 29th. And so we have been asked by the applicant to fast track all of our processes and not follow our processes so that we can make these things work.
Should have just skipped us.
Go.
All right.
I think we're going to leave it alone and vote, see what happens. Sounds like it doesn't matter
Let me
anyway.
read the thing.
I hate to be crass, but, so, those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Those opposed?
4-6.
4-6.
Send a message.
So we voted against it. Okay.
And it will still proceed to the
Still goes to
meeting of the 28th, so, but this conveys the concern of the commission on that.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
Thank you all.
Well,
Thank
we're
you.
consistent in terms of having problems with vacating streets.
Yes.
Please.
What else we got, sir?
We have item 13, which we really want to do at this point, discussion of notification for preliminary subdivision plats. Eric.
And this is more of an advertisement that there's going to be more, we want to see more discussion if there's the desire on the part of the commission. The issue that has come up is preliminary plats for development do not have any type of notification of surrounding properties. So in recent situations, we've had an alarm raised by neighbors when the graders start moving dirt and they've never heard of anything that's going to happen. And that actually has occurred because we don't have a notification for our preliminary plats when they come to the plan and zoning. We post the agenda, we meet all of our legal requirements, but there's no proactive notification of those neighbors. So in looking at the code, it looks like we'll probably have to do some adjustments based on the way the code's written in order to start charging fees and that for notification. So right now, we want to just open the dialogue to see if there's even the desire on the part of the commission to explore this. We would go probably through the R&O commission as we would with any of our text changes. We'd probably be focused more on the site plan ordinance and the subdivision plat ordinance, not the zoning ordinance, which is going to get an overhaul anyway under the budgeted item. But so we would be following that process if we wanted to move forward with this
So this
concept.
would make it, from a developer's point of view, another step, another hoop to jump through, or not?
It would add a fee to cover the cost of the notification. It wouldn't be a lot different than what we do with site plans now that come, like, for example, the site plans that were with you here this evening. We sent out notices. If they want to get a response card, they have to come in and look at the plan because we don't believe they can make a judgment without actually looking at the plan.
So it's
they would
not
have
just mailed out to them?
Yes, it's mailed out, and then they can take action if they're interested, or they're notified of when it's being heard. Otherwise, they don't have any notion.
So do you want a notion from us?
Yes, I think we want to know, is it worth putting our energy into, because there is some things that have to be changed with the R&O and the ordinances.
Right now, for sending the cards out?
There's a fee that we are allowed to charge for the items like rezonings.
But not for this particular task?
Right.
But it would add
But
one.
there's a process.
And so if we were going to start notifying, it wouldn't make much sense to not charge a fee, because then we would be losing costs that we have in the mailings and postage.
It's got to be expensive for these applicants to come back time and time again because the opponent, the people weren't notified of what's going on. I mean, I think it would save money to the city and the applicants in the long run. They'd be happy to spend the extra money and have people notified under most circumstances.
We're hearing it.
And we don't
So I
have to,
guess the
we don't
answer
have
is
to go
yes.
through all the merits other than if there's interest in pursuing that line.
The answer is yes, that
Okay.
staff should pursue it through R&O and whatever else.
And then, by the way, the ordinance is written, actually, Glenn has indicated we'd have to have a hearing back at the commission before presenting that to council, so.
Okay. There's no director, I assume, unless you're the
There's no
acting
director, and I don't have a director's report. So Mike will be back
There aren't
next Monday.
any reports?
There is not a luncheon, right, tomorrow?
Okay.
There is or is not?
There's not.
And R&O is seeking a chair. I would go, but R&O is seeking a chair.
You said you would go.
I would go, but
I mean, I
there
thought
needs
you
to be
would
a
go
chair.
ahead and chair it.
You'd chair it?
No, I said you.
Oh, no, I can't do both.
Yeah, oh,
I think
Dan
that would-
Flaherty did it one time.
Well, good for him. We're done. You nominate who?
Change your view, and I walk the city like you should. I did something old for something new. Change your view.